There's a version of you that helped you survive everything you've been through. She learned how to stay strong, how to keep going, how to hold everything together no matter what. And for a long time, that version of you, she was totally necessary. But what happens when the version of you that learned how to survive starts getting in the way of the version you're trying to finally live? By the end of this video, you'll understand why the survival version of you is still showing up in your life, why it can feel so hard to let her go, and what it actually takes to reconnect with yourself again. First of all, no one wakes up and decides, I'm going to become emotionally guarded. I'm going to stay in control all the time. Or I'm just going to stop trusting people. Those patterns are usually learned through experience, stress, disappointment, from heartbreak, responsibility, and even pressure. Over time, the body and the mind adapt, and eventually, you become a version of yourself that knows how to survive. And here's what's important to understand. That version of you is not at all weak. She's actually incredibly capable. Your survival self knows how to push through exhaustion, manage everyone else's needs, stay composed, avoid emotional risk, hold everything together. And because she works, you keep relying on her, even when your life begins to shift. Even when your soul starts asking for something deeper. But effectiveness and alignment are not always the same thing. Just because a version of you helped you to survive does not mean she's meant to lead you forever. One of the things that I've been reading, a book I've been reading, there's been some information that really stood out to me. And it's the idea that women's brains actually go through different phases throughout life. The book is called Age Like a Girl by Dr. Mindy Peltz. And one of the concepts she talks about in her book is how women move through different developmental seasons. Almost like we first have the brain of girlhood, then many women move into years of caregiving with motherhood, responsibility, and what we call survival. And later in life, the brain begins shifting again, not necessarily in a declining way, but into much deeper clarity, awareness, wisdom, and selfhood. And I think that shift feels terrifying for a lot of women. It was terrifying for me as well. But reading this book, I'm beginning to think about this in a different way because the survival version of us was built for managing, nurturing, caregiving, producing, and holding everything together, which was definitely what I needed during that time with taking care of my children and my family. But eventually, something deeper starts asking, who am I underneath all of this? And this question happens actually when we're going through that next season. So it's a part of the shift in the season, the adaptation. And maybe that's why so many women wake up in midlife feeling disconnected from themselves. And it's not because we're falling apart, but because we're transforming. This is where it gets much deeper physiologically. Your survival self doesn't just disappear because your life changes. She stays right there because she believes she's still needed. She believes if I let go, something is going to fall apart. If I soften, I might get hurt. If I stop controlling everything, I won't be safe. So even when you desire peace, rest, connection, or softness, there's still a part of you bracing for survival, still a part of you holding on to that season. And it's not because you're broken, it's because your nervous system learned protection before it learned safety. This can show up as struggling to relax, like literally, you have to say, like you're struggling to relax, overthinking everything, feeling emotionally guarded, staying busy all the time. I've been so guilty of this one. Difficulty receiving help, feeling disconnected from your body, or feeling like you don't fully recognize yourself anymore. And sometimes it even affects your desire and your romantic relationships. Because when the body has spent so many years surviving and adapting in this way, connection can start to feel unfamiliar because it was possibly one of the last things on your mind, going back to the breaks again that we've talked about. If I'm being honest, this is something that I personally had to learn the hard way. There were seasons of my life where I was totally functioning, in hyper function mode, doing what absolutely needed to be done. But internally, something still felt off at times. And looking back, I can see that I had become so focused on surviving that I had slowly disconnected from myself in that process. And isn't something that we do intentionally. It happens gradually. It's a process, the way a lot of women do. So if you recognize yourself in this conversation, this is so important. That survival version of you is not the enemy. She protected you. She carried you. She got you through seasons that required strength. But maybe this season of your life is asking for something different now. Maybe this season isn't about becoming less. Maybe, just maybe, it's about finally becoming who God created you to be underneath all of that. So just maybe lean into it. If you want to move beyond this so-called survival mode, it's going to start with awareness. I want you to begin to simply notice. Notice when you're responding from protection instead of presence. When you are controlling instead of just allowing. When you're bracing instead of relaxing. And as you start noticing all of these patterns, you can begin to start trusting yourself again. Not by forcing change, but by recognizing what's happening in real time and choosing differently, even in small moments. And the more you start having these different choices, things are going to start to adapt and get even better for you. Because rebuilding self-trust is not about having all the answers. It's about learning that you can see yourself clearly and respond in a way that actually honors you. So, if you're ready to go deeper, I created a resource to help women reconnect with themselves, their body, and their sense of identity in a more intentional way. You can find those in my Stand store link below. And I'll also link that book below, Age Like a Girl, along with a few other books I've been reading lately that have been really expanding my understanding of women, of healing, of reclaiming. Now, before I let you go, you know how I do. Take a moment and be honest with yourself. What part of you is still trying to protect you in ways you may no longer need? Because reclaiming yourself and becoming, it doesn't start with changing everything. It starts with finally understanding yourself. I'll meet you right back here in the next conversation.